Hello, Casual back again. I think we've now cured the problem that I was having with the live stream. So for those of you who come back, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And many apologies there. I think it was my VPN was kicking in and actually cutting down on how much video could actually get through to YouTube. So I've turned that off and we seem to be working now. So let's jump into it. So as I said before, in this Outriders stream, we're going to be looking at two builds, both of them for the Trickster. The first one is going to be a pretty standard one. It's based on the world record speedrun build that Play-Doh Bear uses. You can see on the character there using the Death Shield, Firepower build, very cookie cutter, and actually quite interestingly, not different at all from what most people have used. I've made one tweak really for the casual player to make it a little bit more usable, give it a bit more survivability, which with the build it was, if you screw it up in any way, you were going to die. The second build is a bit more unique, and so we'll jump onto that in a sec, but let me take you through this build first. So as you can see here, as I said, using a Death Shield automatic shotgun, as a lot of the Trickster builds do. Modded with Fortress and Dark Sacrifice. I actually think Fortress in its current state is not that great, but it's okay. Yeah, you will get those buffs, get those stacks up there and get the damage buff and also the armor and resistance. But the armor and resistance actually isn't going to be a lot on the base that you start with this build. Dark Sacrifice, of course, is probably the best damage mod in the game, weapon damage mod in the game for firepower builds, with its 75% weapon damage, which obviously with the offset of the constant health drain. That's the only weapon you're going to use. You're not going to use any other. So let's jump on to the how the build works in terms of. This is very much a hunt the prey, jump behind your the enemy, and then you're really using a lot of these damage mods that are in here. So your weapon damage mod, your close range weapon damage, and then of course also the buff you get from actually attacking from behind. All of that means that once you've hit hunt the prey, you're going to pop behind them, and you're going to be able to put out a hell of a lot of damage really quickly. The other thing that's within the build on the pure damage on the firepower will be things like Sharp Eye, you've got Personal Space, you've got Bloodlust, and you've got Stare into the Barrel. So probably the four top and standard damage mods for close range damage, and that is really important. I mean, you need to understand how your build works. So with this one, it is a close range damage build. If you are outside of that, you are not going to do a huge amount of damage. Let me just very quickly tweak the volume on the mics. It seems to be a bit high. Hopefully that wasn't too high. Hopefully that's a little bit better. There you go. Shout, just drop me a chat, let me know if the volume is. It looks like it's peaking just into the yellow, so it should be okay. So yeah, so you've got four pretty standard damage mods on your gear there. So you've popped Hunt the Prey, you popped behind them, you're going to take advantage of all of the weapon damage bonuses you've got in your build, in your class tree. You've also obviously got things like Bounty Hunter, which buffs you damage to elites. Now, the one tweak I've made to this build compared to the one the Play-Doh Bear uses is I swapped out Captain Hunter for Damage Absorber. Damage Absorber obviously giving you the extra armor and a slight bit of resistance. That just helps for, I think players like me, probably players like a lot of people, where you just can't, you are going to make mistakes and you need something to keep you alive when you do. And in some respects, Bounty Hunter actually helps to offset that a little bit by giving you a bit of a buff there. You've also obviously got cold calculation, so when you popped in close range behind them, you're going to get that extra damage boost there from being in close range. The other thing obviously is you popped if you've popped the movement skill, is you're going to get the extra 35% extra weapon damage. So you've got some nice synergy there. Hunt the prey, bang, you've got all this extra damage being behind, close range, you got that extra as well. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pop Time Rift. And so it actually will, obviously, as you know, will pop all the enemies up into the air. At the same time, it's going to, as you probably saw a second ago, it's going to increase your weapon damage even further. And then if you go through to your skills, you'll hopefully have seen there, you've got Pain Transfer and you've got Geiger's Wave. So Geiger's Wave, great one, applying Vulnerable. So Vulnerable is a 25% damage buff. And then of course Pain Transfer just gives you that little bit of AoE damage that the Trickster builds quite often struggle with. The other thing you've got on here in relation to Time Rift is long range. So it means that if you line it up right, you can pretty much hit all the way across the map, and you're applying AoE damage, or shared damage I should say more, to all of them through this. And you know what, that's pretty much the build in a nutshell. You are using instant reload for your ammo replenishment, so every time you pop Hunt the Prey you get a full mag back again. On top of that, you have ammo bargains. Every time you kill anything you get 20% of your ammo back again, and that's how you're managing that. And that's probably for tricksters, that quite often is the hardest thing, is that you're using an automatic shotgun. Yes, within the class tree you got the 50% extra magazine from Oddity Summation, which is really big as well. But even so, when you look at something like this, the Death Shield, it means you're going to be starting with 15 shots in the clip. It does hit very hard, particularly as it ramps up. And bear that in mind as well. Sharp Eye, Bloodlust, they take 3 kills to get to their maximum. So it's going to take a little bit of time to actually stack up. So yeah, if you are fighting an elite, don't go headlong into that elite, because you're not going to be hitting as hard as you can be. You want to go and pick off a couple of smaller enemies, then come back to it, come back to that elite, and hit it when you're actually all your buffs are up to the max. But yeah, ammo replenishment is probably the hardest thing with a trickster. But ammo bargain and then Hunt the Prey, the instant reload, is what is going to actually help you to actually take things down. So let's have a very quick look at that in practice. And I apologise, I haven't played this this particular build in a couple of days because I've been working on a different one. So let's go for something easy like Scorched Lands, just so I can ease myself into it. And as I said, I actually probably on one of the aborted attempts I had getting this this stream going. If you've got a build and you want me to have a look at it, please do send it to me. You go onto Outriders app, which is just it's a free website. You can actually build your build and then send it to me. I'm all out of practice and getting these all wrong. You can see how hard this is hitting. So 700,000 there, 600,000 there. And it's pretty much a one shot on some of these bigger ones. So let me just train these all together. I'm going to miss one on that. But it's basically a one shot on that entire group. And then you're using really Hunt the Prey for a combination of the ammo replenishment and then also in order to move around the map very, very quickly. And actually found out the Death Shield actually has pretty reasonable range on it, which is the great thing about that. Alright. course, the dreaded third. Sometimes elites can actually resist time rift, which is very annoying. So I screwed up there. Now that's a good little tip. Is if you screw up like I did there and you catch it, you can hit your hunt the prey, and assuming hunt the prey is up, but it's got a very short cooldown. If you hit hunt the prey while it's still going through the reload animation, you actually still keep twisted rounds up, which is a great way, as I say. If you screw it up, it just helps you to manage your ammo. The question I got for you all is, do you hate the birds as much as I do? They're just such a pain, particularly for tricksters, devastators, you know, any of the classes that don't either have a massive AoE like the Pyromancer or are better at long range damage like the Technomancer is. It's a pain in the arse they are. Those and the shrimps as well, they really are annoying. Alright, so I don't want to take up all our time on this one because this is a really simple build. I mean, sometimes I actually find this a little bit boring to play with. Let's just go through to this Brood Mother and then we'll stop there. But I actually find this a pretty boring build to play with. I mean, it's strong. It's incredibly strong. It's the world record speedrun build and play there usually. And so, yeah, from that point of view, you will get through expeditions incredibly quickly. But all you're really doing is just pointing and shooting, which is, to say it's tedious, is an underestimation, really. I just want to get the stacks up, and then we're going to pop behind them. And there he's down. So I mean, you can see it's going to, and bear in mind again on this one, I swapped out Captain Hunter for Damage Absorber just for a little bit more survivability because, yeah, look, I screw things up the same as everyone does. And we'll stop that one there. Yeah, but it gives you a little bit, but if you had Captain Hunter, that Brood Mother would go down even quicker. Yeah, I agree with you, Tempest. I mean, it's such a pain. I mean, the Devastator particularly because so many of your skills are ground based. I mean, yeah, you pop out an earthquake and yeah, it does actually hit them, but it's not great. I mean, the only thing you can really do as a Devastator is if you're using the Seismic Commander bleed build, then you can actually just apply build and whistle them down. But God, they are a pain in the arse. So let's jump out of that. And I'll take you through then. Let me just I'll do a very quick scan through again because I know people have been coming in and out, and so some of you may have missed that. And that, the build video on that, this one is actually already, the build video is already in the can. All I got to do is do the thumbnail and then upload it. So this build will be out on video and you can have a look at it then. I've just done, this one is going to be a 90-second one because it's using someone else's build really, it was just a small tweak, and so yeah, I don't want to take any credit for that. But this is essentially the gear. It is just so cookie cutter, it's almost painful. It's almost embarrassing, I'd say. And there's your class tree. And that is pretty much the standard class tree that everyone uses. All right, so I didn't mean to do that. Let's go to the other build. And the great thing about this is, this build, or surprisingly, this is an anomaly power build. Was that the right one? Sorry, wrong one. But I want to do something a little bit different in terms of both the. Obviously the gear, I mean, it's great. It's all purple gear, so it means like, you know, pretty much anyone could build this. Yeah, you've got to grind for the mods, yes. And obviously, as always, Tiago is your best place for those mods. Okay, great. No, good tempest. So this is a bit more of an unusual build, and I haven't done skill tree yet, so ignore the stats on there. But it is based on purples, and if you've got a devastating food tomato, you've probably got all the mods, so you can probably set this up pretty much straight away. The thing I really like about it, it was great fun. It was one of my subs said, "Hey, look at this," and so I did and tweaked it around a bit, and came up with this. Got to get your coffee in. So in terms of skills, those are the firepower skills you just saw, and all I'm going to do is that. All the other skills, the skills are going to say the same. I mean, you're going, well, hang on a second, you haven't got any anomaly damage on here. How the hell is this going to work? Trust me, it does. So we're going to pick up, it's anomaly power, so we're going to pick up anomaly power. Resistance piercing, again, really, really useful for any anomaly power build. Trickster, I don't know why they did this, but I don't know if you've ever noticed, it only gets 10% resistance piercing, whereas all the other classes get 15%. I mean, why? Why make the anomaly power, on the Trickster not as good and force everyone into these firepower builds that you've just seen? I'm not going to kick over that. I'm actually going to go for, we're going to pick up the cooldown, picking up more anomaly power, picking up more resistance piercing. I'll leave these segs, I'll pick up just the basic core. So up to this point, you're looking at it going, okay, this is a pretty typical anomaly power build. You've picked up pretty much all of the concentrations, maxing that out as much as you can. You can already see on here, 193,000 anomaly power. So good solid on that one. What we're going to do is slightly different, or the way this works slightly differently, is we're going to pick up the counter shield. We're going to pick up combat shield's timeline. That again is fairly standard. We're going to pick up some more reduction on there. We're going to pick up that one. So you've got three ways there in those ones. Anomalic acceleration. That's easier to say than it looks. Combat shield's timeline and counter shield are both great buffs to your anomaly power when you're actually either activating or when a skill comes to an end. And this one in particular, this gives you an idea why I picked up Twisted Rounds. Because with Twisted Rounds, you can activate it, and you can either reload or swap weapons, and it's going to turn it off. And that's going to give you that 50% damage boost straight away. So it's very on demand. You've got complete control over when you activate it. So I mean, that already gives us a reasonable start for it. But then actually, this is where we come on to something slightly different from any other anomaly power build out there. Is I'm going to pick up Sign of the Void, and that's as far as we're going in the trees. I'm going to pick up Leap of Clincher, and then we're going to go into the middle tree. And that's quite useful because this is going to actually give me a little bit more health, a little bit more damage resistance. And then we're going to actually pick up Leap of Quarters, which I'm not sure I've ever seen in any build. Now, you can see the theme here, isn't it? We're picking up a lot of armor piercing, so 25% extra there when we hit the movement. You've got resistance piercing there when we do the movement, and on here we get actually 30% and 25%. Okay, so why is that important? And the answer is because I'm using no resistance against the fortified on the build, and this mod is still glitched. You can see it's got that shaded red, which means I've got more than one modded onto this gear, but it still works. This has been in the game since day one, and I put out a Pyromancer build on it. You might have seen, which is called "This is OP" or something like that, because you can just stack these as many times as you like, and it's going to keep adding to your resistance piercing through your armor piercing. And the way you can see that is, when you look at this here, you can see that the resistance piercing is 20%. All right. If I swap over to my Roaring Umbra, which has armor piercing on there, in theory, resistance piercing should go up by 15% if it's only working one time. And you can see it's gone up by 30. And that's because I got two of those modded on here. So it's picking up both of them and slapping that on and giving me 15% from both, which it shouldn't do. So that's, and the reason why that's great then is because it means you can get all these extra buffs on those particular skills. So then when you look at the actual, and obviously it's then Unstoppable Force that is then feeding that through into anomaly power. So all of your resistance piercing is buffing your anomaly power. What you've also got on this particular build is you've got, I think we'll jump to this one, so little bit of pain. So a little bit of pain, which is attached to your time rift, is one of the big damage dealers for this build, and it doesn't look like much. It's got 695,000 damage. You're like, okay, I can get more than that for Moaning Winds almost, 617,000, which is on your second weapon there. And you go, okay, yeah, that's true. But then actually, if I do this, so I activate my Twisted Rounds. Now nothing's happened at the moment. As soon as I swap my weapon, pop that, and we go back, my anomaly power has gone up to 440,000. My resistance piercing is at 155%. And my little bit of pain is going to do 1.6 million of damage, which is not bad now. So suddenly, actually, it's good. And also, if you look at this, resistance piercing of 155, armor piercing of 85%. So suddenly, actually, every shot you do in all of the weapon damage, you know, the anomaly damage you're getting from mods, the enemies have almost no resistance to it, so they're just going to hit straight through that and do a hell of a lot of damage. So that's one of the ways this build does damage. The other way is through aggressive teleportation. Now this is not as strong, to be fair, only because this doesn't actually scale with anomaly power. I've seen so many threads and time where people say, do my weapon damage, you know, does Shadow Comet, Moaning Winds, things like aggressive teleportation scale with anomaly power? And the answer is no, they don't. They are a fixed number. How they could scale is through if you put debuffs onto any of the enemies. So if you're say Techno Blighted Rounds build, you're applying Toxic, you're then modding Euthanizer and Radical Therapy, which add on another 40% damage, and actually it's that actually then scales some of these up. So when you see Moaning Winds hitting for, I mean, I've hit it for about 6.5 million, the Moaning Winds radiation splash nuke you can do. That is all because of the debuffs you're putting onto the enemies, not because your anomaly power is any higher than it was. In fact, actually, the build I've done, that 6.5 million damage, was actually a firepower build, which still says, yes, it's not anomaly power that's doing this, it's something else. So that's useful. Now, ignore the seismic impulse. I don't want seismic impulse on there. I actually want there is untamed power, because when all your anomaly power is buffed, that does scale, as it says there, 30% of your anomaly power. So you're roughly getting about 132,000 hits from that, if I can actually find the right piece of gear to put it onto my boots. And that's great because there's no cooldown on it. So every time that, excuse me a second, every time that you actually hit any skill, it's going to pop. So you've got 132,000, which, you know, when you've got, you've got there 6 seconds, 7.5, 10 seconds, you're going to be popping that a hell of a lot. And so you can actually get this really nice AoE effect all the time. And so what you're doing is, with this is, you're just double tapping your borrowed time, and you're doing this AoE damage. And if I had untamed power on there as well, it's almost 500,000 hit for 76 seconds. Now the other thing that does, which is really good, actually just come out in a second, you'll see your shield. One, it gives you a 10,000 shield, which you're going to be able to keep up pretty much all the time, helps with survivability. The other thing it does is it procs Armour of Eons, which doubles your arming. So my armor's 107,000. It started at 53. Well, it must be about 53 point something. So that gives you enough survivability. Just pocket it off. That gives you 67.7% physical damage reduction, plus the 10,000 shield, which is enough to keep you alive. Now, if you are struggling, you know, keeping alive with that, you know, you could put other damage mods on there. You could also swap out, say, this piece or one of the pieces for something like that has max health on it. Yeah, you are going to lose a little bit of damage because a lot of this is anomaly power damage, but it will actually give you quite a bit of extra health because of the classes already You got additional 5% max health from being a trickster, and then also obviously you're stacking some extra max health here. So suddenly it becomes, you know, if you are struggling, put a max health onto one of your pieces of gear, and you find you should be able to stay alive. So let's have a look at it in action. Hopefully I don't screw it up. And it always typically start with your funeral pie, your shotgun. The shotgun's great. I should just say, I was previously using, I wasn't using this, but I was using like the Moaning Winds Radiation Splash as my backup. And you know, you got on here, you've got Torment and Agony, which has got something similar. I should actually change that to radiation. Radiation, so you're not stacking it, because obviously you've got the internal cooldowns now. That means that you can't just pop Moaning Winds as often as you like. So rather than having Moaning Winds on here, you want to have Radiation Splash, because that one is on a different cooldown. Does a lot less, but hey, it's good to have it there. But what you always used to, I presume most of you have seen this, is with the Moaning Winds Radiation Splash nuke, you basically did that, you wait for 8 seconds, and then when you go back to your sidearm or to your secondary weapon, it would actually proc. Like that. And you see it, and you just pop back again. You should get used to doing double tapping or tapping the Y button for me on the Xbox, but you're swapping weapons. What I found, or what I saw when I looked at some of the speedrun builds, so if I go to Roaring Umbra, this is what they're using. They're not using the Ammonoi. I don't know if anyone can pronounce that. That gun. Or something like, this one is actually the Guillotine, which has Radiation Splash and Moaning Winds on there to do that thing. So it hits for 1 million, you get it every 8 seconds. The advantage of something like the Roaring Umbra is it does pretty much the same damage. You've got that 300,000 for Kinetic Stomp, and you've got the 600,000 for Moaning Winds, but it's much more precise compared to the reload method, because you can just fire one shot, and if you hit, you have to hit an enemy, to be fair, but you fire one shot, hit the enemy, and then reload. So you can hit for 300,000, and then you can actually then get your 600,000, but it allows you to be incredibly precise with how you actually then apply that damage, which for the speedrun builds, that's what they need to do. You know, they're getting so precise with when the enemies will appear, with what skills they have to use and when, that's what they that's what they need over having the one that's pure reload. The Funeral Pyre, I think, is a great one, because if you fire it hip fire into a group of enemies, then Shadow Comet and Claymore Torrent can actually proc multiple times, and that's because actually every single one of the shells from the shotgun will actually proc those mods. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's ever supposed to do that, but I've actually seen it where you've got sort of like, you know, 4 Shadow Comets coming down all at the same time, which quite often is an insta-kill for a lot of the enemies. Not for elites, but for the smaller enemies, it absolutely is. Alright, so let's have a look at it, and I can try and show you. And again, apologies. This being my second stream ever, I tell you what, I never realised just how difficult it was to play something and actually commentate on it at the same time. So let's go for Time War Spire. And hopefully I don't screw up the start bit, which is probably well on this one, where if you are going to get it wrong, that's where you're going to get it wrong. Don't judge me. And then just before I do, in terms of times, I don't think this is not the same as a speedrun build, you know, for the Trickster. It's not going to be that sort of time. But I did do, and it'll be on the video I'm going to put out probably next 2 days. I did Stargrave, I think, in 7 minutes 12 seconds, which, yeah, that's a really good time for Stargrave, but you do have to practice it, because you've got to get used to the rotation and how it works in order to get the most out of it. All right, I'm going to focus now. So I just popped that, so it's up. And do that because that's going to actually then get a lot of my buffs going. Swap out, pop that one. I'm actually going to come back to it. Then you see it basically killed all of those. One shot, pop that again, it's up. I could actually pop that. That guy's probably going to die from that. Could do this one. Now, one thing, of course, I actually didn't mention, very remiss of me, is not only are you doing damage with that, with a little bit of pain, you've also got pain transfer on here, so it's going to actually spread it amongst all of the enemy. So I can get in here. They're all dying a little bit too quickly. The aggressive teleportation kicking in. Now, one thing you do have to watch out with this build is your ammo on your shotgun. It can run out really quickly if you're not careful. Really not playing this very well, but hey, you get the principle, I suspect. Right, so we've got an elite there. I tell you what, it's so much harder to do this when you're trying to focus on two things at once. You see it, I mean, it's taking them out pretty damn quickly, pretty easily, all these elites. I've screwed this up about 3 or 4 times already on this run. Alright. So let's just yeah, that's not as quick. Apologies. Playing like a muppet. So yeah, I should have mentioned that it's got a little bit of pain on there as well. So not a little bit of a pain transfer on it. Which just gives you that, obviously allows you to share the damage as well from if you're hitting someone who's in the time rift with. Alright. Alright. So, a little bit slow on that. Not clean. Okay. Well, at least not many of you have actually switched off, which means I'm not doing too bad on it.
Doesn't look like King had any luck breaking through.
So yeah, as I said at the start there, if you've got any builds that you want me to have a look at, would love to have a look at those. Oh, great. Now, I tell you, if you do get a chance, do check out Play-Doh Bear's channel. He does speedruns at the moment. He has done a few build guides on there as well. I think the thing that is just quite incredible with those guys is just, you know, the way they're memorizing the expeditions so well, so that they're able to take these out so incredibly quickly. It's just crazy how quickly they take the enemies out. I'm just popping this. I've got full shield going into this elite. You can see how quickly that borrow time comes back. Give them a little bit. Now, the one thing I think that this can sometimes suffer with is that you don't, until the, say, you notice that once the shield on the food mother went down, then actually time had started to take effect. Oh, it's got really, so you have to knock that shield out first. And then actually it's going to be picked up by the time rift, but while it's got its absorbent skin on, it won't always pick them up. They're pretty effective at taking out all of the enemies at the same time. And I said before, I mean, what I like about this build is that it's quite fun to play. There's a lot going on. Yeah, let's be honest. It is not a passive build. You're going to be constantly swapping weapons, hitting different skills, and if you want that sort of playstyle, brilliant. If you want something that's a lot simpler, yeah, stick with the speedrun build, because that is about as easy as it gets. You just, you know, you're popping hunt the prey, you are popping time rift, but then you're just getting behind the enemies. Hands up people who hate these sections as well, where you just got to stand round the pillar. I mean, I'm not sure why they put those in. I am looking forward to hopefully when Wild Slayer comes out, us getting some different different game modes, something more than expeditions. I mean, I still love making builds, but yeah, it's not as fun as it was. I will be honest, it's just a little bit too samey. I'll keep doing it obviously until World Slayer comes out. But yeah, I'm desperate to have something different to play, to be honest, in terms of game modes and Outriders. Yeah, maybe something like a horde mode. I mean, it'd be great if they actually did release raids and the like, so it's got more like use the different classes. So the Devastator to tank. Okay, give it something where you can actually tank things. Ah, press it. Wrong weapon. It doesn't look like doesn't look like the Moaning Winston clock. Yeah. The great thing though is that crawlers, behemoths, any humanoid elite, they are not immune in any way to time rift. They can't avoid it. So yeah, you can just go at them. Which, you know, for crowd control is great as well. Do a big zero that one. Alright, last one. The behemoth's that one. What have we got there? Ah, nice. Lining themselves up for me there, which I'll take it now. Just the last one left, and we'll have another one. Not a great time, sorry. I will get better at doing this while trying to talk at the same time. Hey, Abu. Great to have you on board. Yeah, I agree with you, Tempest. It'd be great to have some different builds. I'm hoping they might actually put out a different character as well. So we have some more variety there to play. It'd be great. I mean, I love the four we got. I do like all of them. I mean, I think they have really different play styles, which is great. So, Pyromancer, great for AoE, Technomancer, great for long range, and single target damage in particular. Devastator, great at absorbing damage, and with the bleed build is very competitive. Trickster, great single target damage, mobility, getting around the map, and with the shotgun, able to pull out some good times. Yeah, I do think we could do something else, and maybe it's not a new class. Maybe it's actually on the class trees. Put a fourth one in. Maybe that's what they need to do. I think there's still some balancing to be done. If you look at the speed run, the world record speed run times, Pyromancer and Technomancer are actually well ahead of all the other classes. I mean, it really is. Those two are neck and neck on all of the expeditions, and the times are crazy. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, but things like Boomtown, it's like 1 minute 15 seconds to complete it, and you go, that's solos. How the hell do you do that? And then you've got the Trickster a little bit behind, and the Devastator behind that. So yeah, the Devastator does need a buff still in terms of damage output, unless they bring these different modes in. Now, the other thing I see quite often, and probably the last thing, I'll run through this build again quickly for those who didn't see at the start. I think the one thing I see quite often is, hey, it'd be great to have PvP. Absolutely not. I just think that would be a disaster, because there's way too much to balance. yeah, there are just so many mods that you can actually put onto this. The classes, the synergies. I mean, you've just seen from this build all these different synergies that you can actually build up. Trying to balance that in PvP would be impossible. Yeah, and also it's just like, well, okay, you come up against a team of, you know, say it's 4v4, 4 pyromancers with Akari builds. Okay, that can actually just hit you anywhere on this, anywhere in the map. How would you balance that for PvP? I mean, you'd have to have some sort of way of negating it, or else they'd just sit there and spam it, and you're going to die. There's nothing you can do. So, hey, yeah, we'll see what comes with World Slayer. And yeah, Tempest, a little bit more damage wouldn't go amiss for the Devastator. It's a fun class to play, though. It's just, yeah, it's just not quite as strong at the moment. So let's just very quickly at the end here, I'm just going to run through this build again in terms of the gear, the skills and the mods, and then we'll sign off. And apologies for all the difficulties at the start for any of you who did try to come on at 1:30 when it was due to start. Worked out what it was. I had my VPN on, which was then cutting down the amount of video that was coming through to YouTube, and was actually causing it to crash. I mean, look, Tempest, Abu, I think you should play the class that you want to play and you love to play. Who cares about how quickly it is? All of them can complete the expeditions in good time solo. And in some respects, Devastator in a group is probably better than any other class because it's not going to go down. Once you've actually set it up right, you're going to be the one picking everyone else up and actually able to get through there. But play the classes that you love to play, I think, is the answer for me. So this is the build again. Funeral Pyre with Shadow Comment, Claymore Torrent. Do try it out if you haven't tried it before, particularly if you're running, say, anomaly power builds where your weapon damage mods are going to be doing most of your damage. It's a great one. Hip fire, hit multiple targets. Roaring Umbra with Kinetic Stomp and Moaning Winds. It's the precision of when you do the damage with this, rather than the reload method that you get on, say, the Guillotine. I've got that one. Never use it. Never use it on this build. There's too much going on. Yeah, I agree with you. All right. I think some people sit there and go, yeah, it's got to be this class. I think all of the classes are fun. I think they're great to play. I mean, we can step back and say, yeah, the launch of this game was something of a disaster, albeit, to be fair, on, do you know, I always forget to put my ring lights on. Hey, I am a professional, really. So I think, you know, on Xbox, I'm on the Series X, I never had any problems right from the start. I didn't, you know, lose any of my gear. It was pretty stable in terms of the matchmaking connections and everything else. Yeah, matchmaking less so, but I didn't really have lots of crashes. It was pretty good. But yeah, I get it, for the PC, it was pretty much a disaster at launch. Yeah, obviously they kept patching it. They kept rolling out improvements. With New Horizon, I think the game is in a great state. I mean, if you haven't played it or you hadn't played this and you were picking this up on, say, Game Pass, it's an absolute bargain because, yeah, I've played this now for, I think I'm up to about 1,300 hours, which is a little bit sad, I know. Yeah, I've loved it. Yeah, it's only now, I think, at this stage where I'm sort of like, yeah, I'd like something else to do. I still love making different builds, but it would be great. So yeah, so I started with the demo, February the 25th. I think that's when I first started putting out content on the game, and when actually my channel started to take off a little bit, and it's got to where we are now. But yeah, it's just yeah, I think it's really great. It's a great game, and I have high hopes, and I have high hopes that with World Slayer we'll get more storyline, new zones, new expeditions, and maybe a new class, at least some tweaks to the class trees and skills. Maybe new skills would be a good thing. But the big one for me would be different game modes. It would be great to have something like, maybe not a horde mode, because It's a little bit too similar to that bit where you sat in the ring. I mean, that basically is a horde mode with a timer, but something that would be good. I tell you what, Tempest, a game I've actually just started playing again, and maybe don't jump into it yet. I played The Division for years. I played on the PlayStation back then, and I loved it. It was a really great game. Finally, again, its launch was horrible, and by about patch 1.8, it became absolutely brilliant. And if you had never played The Division, it's probably, well, I think you can get it for like $3, $5 now. It's worth trying, but I'm jumping back into The Division 2. Interesting, I think, yeah, and mainly because you've got a couple of things coming out this year. You've got an update to Division 2 adding more content, which it sorely needs. Division has all these different game modes like survival. You've got the PvP, Last Stand. You've got Resistance, which is a horde mode. It had raids. It had dungeons, strikes, whatever you want to call them. It had it all. It was great. Division 2 doesn't really have that yet, and they kind of just stopped producing content on it in the second year. Maybe partly because of COVID, resources, but partly maybe it didn't do as well as they wanted it to. They've now actually recommitted to it, and we're going to see some more content coming out. I think new Division 2 content's coming out in April, and it's a good game. Again, I think you can pick it up fairly cheap. Even where it is now without new content, it's worth picking up. It's a good looter shooter, third-person perspective, so it's similar to this. Plays completely differently though, because it's very much a cover-based shooter. Not like this one where, if you're using cover, you've probably got it wrong. You're using that when things are going really pear-shaped. So I got a little bit of a cold coming on, I think. I'm in New York, and the weather here is just so brutally cold. So it's much more. You need to use cover, but it is. I think it's worth checking out, particularly if you can get it cheap. You got new content, but the one actually I'm quite excited for is Division Heartland, which is due to come out. They haven't actually announced the date, but I think there's some expectation due to timings of seasons within the games that Heartland may come out sometime in February. Which February is looking like a bloody packed month for good games, with Elden Ring coming out there. You've got Destiny 2 Witch Queen. Lost Ark is coming out fairly soon, which is a free-to-play MMO with top-down, a bit like Diablo. So it's going to be about, I'm really excited about Division Heartland, and I'll be doing some content, and that's why actually I'm now doing 2 streams, doing this one purely focused on Outriders, and we'll do this every Thursday, and then Tuesday. What day is it? Every Tuesday, and then every Friday I'll be doing Division 2 as I try and level up a character. But yeah, definitely check it out, because it feels a lot like this, but not as aggressive. It's much more measured, and you take your time. You've got all the builds in there as well. If you love making builds, it's another one that's good for that. It's definitely worth checking out. So let me very quickly run through this, and then we'll sign off. So, this is the gear. Anomaly power, close range damage, and cooldown reduction, I think, are the stats to go for. You could swap out close range damage for healing, skill life leech, or the healing received. Healing received kicks in when you actually kill something for a trickster. Skill life leech all the time that you're doing damage. So depends whether you want healing over time or just healing constantly. As I said at the start, the no resistance against the fortified is glitched, so you can actually stack it up multiple times. Unstoppable force, then using resistance piercing to buff your anomaly power. You've got the armor of eons, which is kicking off when you do your borrowed time. Your Captain Hunter for elites. You've got that little bit of pain and long range damage, and you've got aggressive teleportation and seismic impulse. And actually, that's interesting. Do you know what? I can tweak this a little bit more, I think, because if I put on pain transfer, it'll be even more effective. So I may well actually play around with this a little bit more. So you can see this could get even better. Apologies for that. I thought I had pain transfer on here, and I must have taken it off at some point. I may be tempted even to swap out one of the no resistance against the fortified for that, because that extra AoE damage is actually quite useful. So let me play about that. But this is the core of it. May well change slightly for the final version, but yeah, a lot of potential, and I'll get the full build guide out within the next few days. So thanks for watching, and for those who've been on for almost the entire stream, brilliant, really great to have you, great to chat to all, and I look forward to doing this again in the future. So until next time, casual out.